But some of you, I'm sure, are already working in this space, understanding the notion and the impact of the Internet of Things. This should light up the faces of tens of thousands of kids in your schools when they understand that all of a sudden the internet isn't going to be about connecting people, but it's going to be about connecting things. In fact, about connecting everything on the planet. And there's some debate about whether in fact there are more things connected on the planet at the moment. In other words, 8 billion is the figure that's usually thrown around, than there are people connected. And imagine if those things are connected, then what will they tell us about what we're doing? And yes, there are all the, security issues and privacy issues, all that. And we're going to deal with those, we always have. But the opportunity for young people in this notion of big data and the Internet of Things, and the things that we can inspire them about what technology will make possible, is unprecedented. Probably some of the stuff we are familiar with is this fabrication and additive manufacturing with 3D printing. This example of not just 3D printing little things out of plastic, but this young baby's windpipe was fabricated out of a 3D printer. And of course they're doing prosthetics of all sorts of things, and this is just the start. They're starting to be able to do body part building with 3D printers using body cells. And these are the things that we're now taking into our schools. This takes me back to the 80s. And boy, is this an inspiring time. And it's probably fairly typical that Gary Stager, who a number of you would know, and his partner Sylvia Martinez have written this book, Invent to Learn. I think it's a must. I reckon it's an absolute ripper of a book. And it really takes us back to that time where we valued the science of computing, we valued the rigour, we applied ourselves to the serious side of technology, and we realised that this was the opportunity for our young people to build a career for themselves, to build a passion about something that technology could offer them in the future. Our problem is our use of technology in schools just hasn't kept abreast with these ages that I've just been talking about. So where do I currently think we're at? Sadly, I think we are grossly underestimating what technology will now make possible. There isn't one answer for this. This isn't just about saying, we can now use technology to teach a particular subject. It's over everything we do. It's the way our schools function. It's the way our classrooms function. It's the way we build difficult concepts with young people. Take a subject, for instance, like mathematics. It's a subject that will allow us, it's an idea that will allow us to explore difficult concepts in those subjects in ways we never could before. I think we are genuinely losing the race. And that's why I took the time at the start to show us. Because I think we're doing okay up until around about the turn of the century. But I think we're starting to slip behind. And I think that you are the people who can help us not only catch up, but lead the way. Because I think we have to have a much better understanding about what this technology is now making possible. And most importantly, we have to be aware of that new context out there. We have to be aware of that exponential growth and the abundance and the impact of complexity, ambiguity, and big data and those things, because that's going to impact on the lives of our young people. I haven't got time to read the whole thing, but I'll just take the bottom end of what Will says here. Don't we have an obligation to start talking about how to unlearn and relearn the whole enterprise of school in light of the increasing abundance of knowledge, information, teachers and learning opportunities we now have access to? So here are some quick first steps to finish the presentation. Here's what I think we actually do. If we agree that what we've just seen is a realisation of the context in which our schools currently operate is now moving ahead of where the institution of school functions. And I think we start with we can't go out there and look at the technology. It's got to do with how young people are learning. What's the impact on the way our young people are learning in this information-rich, abundant environment? And I think we have to build up these principles of contemporary learning, which in fact we had a first stab at Ideas Lab, and those people who are going to the workshop Richard's doing this afternoon will see the information that he's put together in that. We started off, we've got about a dozen of them. But these are different ways that young people learn, and we have to understand those if we're going to create a relevant, worthwhile experience for them in our schools. Because these young people are the sort of people now who go to concerts and film videos and share them around the world with their friends, and they don't need somebody to teach them how to do that. They do that on their own. Number two, I think we've got to stop ignoring the what. And yes, I am being deceptive. I'm talking about curriculum. We haven't got time to have the big debate on it today, but I've got to tell you, can we just get serious about this? I think we missed a ridiculous opportunity with the national curriculum. For whatever reason it is we have them all aligned and we're all talking across the country, congratulations, but we missed an opportunity. Because what we did was put together more of what we had before and refined a little bit. Surely we've got to stop thinking about curriculum in the same way we thought about it in the 20th century. Surely what we want young people to learn is extraordinarily different to what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And we've got to simply stop locking young people's potential up inside 20-cent notions of curriculum. It's like Larry Rosenstock says at High Tech High. It's not about delivering curriculum to kids, but rather discovering curriculum with them. And just a quick throwaway at you to have a think about. I don't mean this to undermine what we're doing in curriculum. I'm not trying to say throw it out the window, but I'm saying we need to rethink, reimagine. What if, for instance, we started by thinking of curriculum as a strategy rather than just content? For instance, if we thought about the notion within our curriculum, if you're going to build a strategy, then you have to say, well, how much of our curriculum is going to be teacher-directed? How much of it's going to be student-directed? And then let's have a discussion as a collective, as a staff, as a community, and decide where do we think we fit. Maybe you're in one. Maybe you decided that within your school, for all sorts of reasons, your curriculum does need to be very much driven from the teacher. This afternoon I'm actually going to, I think, one of the best state primary schools in the world, in Caulfield. I mentioned Princess Hill, because I think the work they're doing is that good. I've actually brought one of my daughters who's a teacher over, and we're going, and they're exploring these ideas. Because this is the place we've got to go to. We've got to understand how young people work. We've got to engage the curriculum piece in whatever form it's going to be. We can't continue just to open the book and say, well, we've always done it that way and we must continue to do it that way. 3, I think we've got to accept that while standardised testing maybe is necessary, it's not sufficient, and it's a tiny window into what students can really accomplish. And we've got to focus on new pedagogies and a mastery through deeper learning. There's some really good work that's just starting with Fulham doing some work on new pedagogies for deeper learning. That's a reference at the bottom of the screen. But the highlight again, I'm playing favourites to Richard, but I've got to tell you, he's done some fantastic work on what he's calling the Innovation Canvas, which is a tool that allows coaches in schools and outside schools for teachers to reflect on their existing practice and embrace the technology and the impact it has on pedagogy. It has direct application. So we know that modern technologies are providing students with experiences of unprecedented breadth, depth and complexity. Isn't it absurd that we ever asked, is this stuff increasing achievement? If it isn't, we're doing something wrong. So what should schools for the modern learners look like? Well, there is now that we have this, and it's a terrible cliche, so I apologise, I've used the term 4 times, thought leadership. But I genuinely mean this. If you can walk away from this conference inspired by the role that you can take in your school, in your community, in communities across the country, as the technology thought leaders, not the people who go out and just teach technology in your classroom, but the people who can help your peers, your school leaders, your policy leaders be better informed about the role of technology and the context in which our schools are working and the impact technology has over the wider world, then that is a bold undertaking. As I finish, I come back to the bloke who started it all, Papert. I can't help it, because unfortunately he had it right. He said, my own philosophy is revolutionary rather reformist in concept of change. But the revolution I see is of ideas, not of technology. It consists of new understandings of specific subject domains and new understandings of the process of learning. It consists of a new and much more ambitious setting of lights of educational inspiration. I often take that massive piece of theory and tangibly pull it down and say, let's look at mathematics. Do you really believe the way that we taught mathematics, the content of teaching of mathematics through the 20th century is appropriate for our young people as they move into this age of complexity, big data, abundancy, exponential change? Is that really Or are we possibly seeing the light of change with people like Stephen Wolfram and Charles Fidel and others who are now talking about rethinking the teaching of mathematics in the technology-rich environment and other areas, particularly topics like science? Ironically, the social sciences is probably the area that's embraced more of this thinking than anywhere else. So I finish with this very simple 2 words. Please take back. Please take your peers. Let's expect more. Let's not be satisfied with what we have. Let's understand that we can do so much more, and our young people can do so much more. I started with that little icon of the frog in the boiling water. This is a little bit more blatant. I don't want to see the water boil, but I do want to see us start talking about the beginning of school as it should be. Thanks very much, everyone.